May the truth be told, I was down bad, now I got it on go. Finna count my dough till my thumb got slit. Put my neck on glitz, put my name on the list.
Hello and welcome to the Long Haul Podcast with myself and Claire. How you doing, Claire? You had a good week?
Yeah, it's all been good, thanks. Yeah, loving the sunshine.
Apart from getting stood on by a cow.
Well, yeah, that's part and parcel of it now.
So we were up on Penny Fan with the fan dance this last Saturday. It seems a long time ago now, but yeah. So we recorded a few interviews up there. Some of the interviews we recorded won't be going out because for some reason the camera recorded 15 seconds of them. I don't know why. Okay. So they'll be really short. But yeah, they get quite a lot of other people. But yeah, it was a good turnout for the fan dance this weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really good. I was so pleased for AE to get that level of turnout, especially for the load bearing. That was really good.
Yeah, I saw Ben Tench put a picture of himself up in all his pilgrim kit, but that wasn't the fashion event, was it?
No.
The fashion event was a particular hat.
Oh God, yeah.
And I've been dared to talk about it actually, and I said, yeah, of course I'll talk about it. But yeah, it was
the pink condom hat.
The pink condom hat, yeah, which apparently was Ben Tench's that he'd lent to him.
Okay.
But yeah, Ken Jones, who runs AE, was wearing a particularly fetching hat that looked like he had a condom on his head. So hopefully he's forgotten I've talked about it by the time I next enter a fan dance. But
oh, no. We'll try and enter one, and it will just be declined. We have been blacklisted.
But yeah, it was a very wet day. I had I put the pilgrim trousers on and thought I won't put any waterproofs on. That was a mistake. It was absolutely soaked through. But
yeah.
No. But yeah, anyway, we've today's podcast is with Sarah. Sarah is a coach and also a Hill and Moorland Leader. She's a career coach. We had a really good chat with Sarah. And yeah, I think there's a couple of chats recently that have sort of opened my eyes and probably made me make major changes in my life. And that was one of them. I was like, because hearing her in this podcast talking about the place where she worked, I was like, I work in this place. Yeah. I'm working there now, and I need to get out of here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I think that and the chat we had the other week with Andy Steele as well sort of lit a fire in me, and I was like, yeah, I need to do something that I sort of enjoy here. Have you been doing anything with Pilgrim Bandits recently?
Yes, I was in London with them. We had a charity. Well, it wasn't a charity yet, but the charity was the leading beneficiary from all the donations. Okay. It was an MMA style event in the O2 Arena. It was the first one of their kind, and it's in a different style ring with sloping sides. Wow. And so yeah, it was a really, really interesting setup. So yeah.
And what have they got coming up soon? Anything?
Yes, there is a battlefield tour at the beginning of August. There's another one of these charity MMA fights in the O2 Arena in London again in September. And there's a couple of just social events and fundraisers going on all the time in and around.
Yeah, and if people want to help out, they can just go to the Pilgrim Bandits website.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a really good website now. There's lots of links on there as well, so it gives you sort of lots of information about some good gear you can buy and how you can donate. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, so let's head over to our podcast with Sarah Lister. And maybe like me, you'll listen to it and make a massive career change. Hello and welcome to the Long Haul Podcast with myself and Claire. And today we are joined by Sarah Lister. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Just come inside from after sunning myself.
Lovely. Yeah, beautiful day out there today. So Sarah and I met on our Hill and Moorland Leader course. Was that 2019, 2020?
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking it's 2 or 3 years ago, but I think it's much longer.
Yeah, it's much longer than that. But yeah, it was a while back, and it was we both were on a course, and it was Claire. It was a really nice course, wasn't it? We just had such a good bunch of people on it, and we've all bonded and sort of meet up ever since. So
I'm quite jealous because I've been looking into doing it. So kind of good experiences is always positive.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was a really good course. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just let Sarah sort of introduce herself, and so what does Sarah Lister do? How would you describe yourself?
Well, I've sort of shifted my life around so that I can center my running as my priority. And when I say my running, I really mean my running for fun. I'm not particularly training for anything or working towards any particular goals, but I just wanted to have the freedom away from that 9 till 5 sort of lifestyle so that I could go out pretty much when I wanted to. And so I looked into how I could create some freelance work to fit around that would allow me that flexibility. And that brought me to living in Edale in the lovely Peak District. And I've got various freelance work that I do, including career coaching. And I work for an organisation that's based in Sheffield, but it offers me a lot of flexibility so that I'm not at my desk all the time.
Yeah. So how do you go about your career coaching in the outdoors? How do you combine those two?
Well, I do a bit of both. I do online coaching and outdoor coaching, but outdoor is my preference. And
Mm,
I get straight into it when I meet up with somebody. So I already send them a few questions in advance just to see what what they're experiencing at the moment, what their sort of questions are asking themselves. And then when we meet up, there's not really much small talk that goes on. We just get straight into it to make the most of the four. It's usually about 4 hours, and we
mm.
go out walking. We tend to go up Kinder Scout, which, as you know, is the highest point in the Peak District. So I take people up there, and first of all, I let people sort of download everything that
Mm,
is going on in their mind, that all of the sort of struggles, the worries, and they just give them the space while we walk uphill to let that all out.
mm.
And then I start to ask questions that sort of get beneath the surface of what's going on by asking things like, well, it's sort of going with present and then past and then future. So, what impact are these things having on you? And what's going to happen if you don't resolve this? So it starts to give it a bit more power and a bit more motivation.
Mm.
And then we go on to shape how they might do that, like what options they have, what they've tried, what they haven't, what limiting beliefs are in the way or obstacles. And then we sort of talk about how we can work through those together and set some things to work towards. And then a few weeks down the line, I'll check in with them and ask them how it's going.
So when you changed your life, did you have a career coach at all, or did you just wing it?
Yeah, I was at a total loss. Like I didn't know. I didn't know where to go. Like I'd been lost for years. I'd done a degree at uni,
Mm,
and I just didn't know what to do. I kept trying different jobs in the travel industry, in the oil and gas industry as a data analyst, and like all these, it all just felt really clumsy and random. And I sort of enjoyed aspects of them, but there was just this feeling that I wasn't getting it right for myself. I wasn't feeling
mm.
satisfied, and I certainly couldn't imagine another, however many 40 years or 50 years, however long it goes on for now. I just couldn't imagine myself still being in that place of sitting at a desk thinking, I don't think I really want to be here. And so that's what made me be curious and explore how I could find out what I wanted to do, because I felt quite ashamed of not knowing. When I was sort of in my early 30s, I felt like I should really know by now who I am, what I want, where I want to be. And I was feeling more lost than ever. And I just came across a talk at an event in London. It was like a meetup event. And I felt really inspired by this woman who had left her job in recruitment to set
Mm.
up as a career coach, well, as a life coach. And she'd moved to Malawi. And so she visited London to do a few talks. And then she would go back home to Malawi. And that's where I used to speak to her from on my online
Okay,
chats with her.
right.
It's like 6 in the morning. So yeah, and I worked with her for about 6 months, and then that just set me off. And then I ended up working with various coaches for quite some time, including as part of my training as a coach.
Right. Okay. And you were, so when you were working in London, you were on that sort of path. How, you did sort of touch on a little bit there, but how did that make you feel? Just sort of sat behind the desk. Were you, at what point did you realize that you wanted something more?
So I was in the same company for about 5 years, and for the first
Mm,
2 or 3 years, I felt like I was really motivated and really excited. I thought, I've actually got quite a good salary here, and
mm,
um I'm not too against the work, although I didn't particularly enjoy working in the oil and gas industry. The actual content of the work was somehow interesting to me.
mm,
And then I moved into the power and renewable side of things. And so for the first, 3 years, I was feeling positive and motivated and like I was going to actually progress in this career. But it was the management that I mean, I'm grateful for it now, but at the time, the management just did me in, like with all of their rules and pushing against me and my ambition. There was like a lot of petty gossiping sort of going on all the time. And I just started to see that this structure wasn't working for this organization. And I just didn't want to be there, basically. And when I was looking for other jobs, I didn't feel particularly inspired, and I just didn't want to have to go into the same thing again. So the impact of that was that I was feeling anxious. I was losing my confidence because my boss at the time seemed to have this thing against me and was just making it very unpleasant for me to be in the office. I didn't know how to fight it. I didn't know how to stand up to her because she was my manager. And when I went to the CEO, she supported the manager, and there wasn't any HR department. And when I went externally, again, it was a case of, well, where's your evidence for these things? It was all happening sort of behind closed doors or in like little emails and things. So I didn't have a hard case. And then I just ran out of energy and confidence, and my anxiety was just terrible. And I just thought, I need help. Like, I actually need help. I went to the doctors, and they signed me off for a couple of weeks, suggested various things so I could take up counselling, um, which I didn't take up at the time, but I did later on through that job. They provided some like therapy as part of the job, so I had 6 sessions. But I mean, the therapy helped me with another area of life, which was my relationship at the time. But yeah, I just it was like everything was sort of crumbling. Like, my relationship was falling apart. My idea and ambition about the job was falling apart. I started to like reconsider whether I wanted to be in London because I'd started going out walking and meeting new people. So, but then I think sometimes things have to sort of crumble and fall down in order to get back to those foundations. I remember my therapist at the time talking about my foundations. And now thinking back, it's like, yeah, I had to go back to those to like build myself back up again. And I had to get all the help I could get, really. And I certainly wasn't getting it from a workplace.
I was quite interested. You said that actually your manager and the CEO were both female. In the industry that you were in, were you as a female on the minority? And actually, you found that women generally were there to backstab other women and not support? Or was it just that kind of relationship that was in that company in particular?
Yeah, I think it was quite a new thing to the organization to have women who were joining as data analysts. It was male dominated. But I mean, I remember my boss actually saying to me that she was jealous of me. She didn't like it that people came and
Oh
chatted to
God.
me at my desk, and she didn't give me my bonus or all of my bonus, whereas everyone else in the team, all of the men got their bonuses. It's like all these. It sounds really petty
No.
now, but at the time, it just felt awful. It was just like, hang on, I've been here longer than you. I was doing really well, and this woman just came in and just it just felt like she just wanted to like just take me down, and
Mm.
she did. She broke me down. In the end, we actually, when I left, it was on fairly good terms because my coach helped me through that so that it didn't end up in like a big kind of blow up argument or something. Um, but yeah, I just didn't know how to deal with it. I
Yeah.
really didn't. And after having a male boss in the organization who'd been really supportive, it was really difficult to have that change come in. I mean, as I said earlier, I'm sort of grateful for it now because it gave me the push that I needed to get out of that lifestyle. And the lifestyle wasn't terrible, like don't get me wrong, you know, I it was on paper, it was a pretty good lifestyle. The job wasn't too highly pressured. I was living in a nice part of London, and my colleagues were nice, but it was just this question of like, do I really want this? Do I want another version of this in another job? And I decided not. But that was scary as well because I didn't know what on earth what would be next instead, because I thought I'd explored all my options.
Yeah. And you also said that you only got into walking while you were kind of in that later stage of that job. So although you said you wanted to focus on your running, running on pavements is very different to running, as you're now knowing, up Kinder Scout. So was getting out and about and up in the hills something new to you then?
Yeah, it was definitely in the hills. Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I'd grown up in Norfolk on a farm, so I was
Flat as
very
anything.
yeah, pretty much one of the flattest places you could ever go. And but the landscape there is really beautiful. You know, talk about like the big skies and beautiful sunsets, and the farm was lovely where I grew up and all that. But then I sort of lost my contact, my connection with all of that through living in London. Although I used to go around, like do a walk around Greenwich Park, it was like I had this repetition of routine of commuting, you know, the usual London thing. You commute, you go to work, and then at the weekend, like on a Friday night, I'd go drinking with everyone at work. Saturday hungover, I might go for a little walk around Greenwich Park, and then Sunday, some other version of that. And then you just start again. And that was, you know, that was going on for years, which I can't believe now. But I wasn't exploring, I wasn't following any of my curiosities about anything. I guess I was stuck with what I was in, and I needed a big thing to like shock me out of it. And it was my coach that asked me, as soon as I started working with her, she said, "What brings you joy?" And I didn't have an answer. I just couldn't think. And to help me, she said, "Think about things that you did when you were younger that you really enjoyed." And that made it much easier. And that was what sparked that realization that I needed to go walking. But I think when you've got a bit stuck in something, it's hard to suddenly find the confidence to go walking on your own somewhere new. So I joined meetup groups, and there were sometimes like 50 people in these meetup groups, and we'd all get to a like Victoria train station, travel somewhere to Kent or somewhere else down south and go walking all day together. And then I ended up doing bigger trips to Wales and, you know, car sharing and all sorts of things. So yeah, it was quite a sort of it was a very gradual thing, uh, that I towards actually getting the confidence to spend out time outside on my own and exploring these places. But yeah, it sort of started with going with groups and just starting to get used to being out in those environments.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love the idea that actually there are, because I was only a student in London. I'm farming born and bred, so I'm proper country. But I like the idea that there are actually groups that meet up in London and get out. And as you say, it was part of rebuilding your confidence that's obviously got hammered by a female in the workplace, which is so sad to hear.
Yeah, it was a really sad experience, especially when I think back to how much it affected me. You know, like I was to think now that I've got my podcast and that I take people out into the mountains and hills, and it's I couldn't even imagine doing that then. You know, I was like I really wasn't myself. I wasn't. It was like I wasn't even quarter of myself. I was losing myself, and yeah, it was getting outside and the support of a coach that helped me to get out of that. And I'm so grateful to her for it was quite a simple thing, really, you know, like what brings you joy and not knowing the answer to that and then going out and finding out. And I still ask myself that question if I ever feel a bit stuck with something. I just think oh, it's time to go and play. Like it's time to just go for a walk for the sake of a walk or a run, like without training for anything or trying to be better at anything or getting the perfect photo, whatever it is. It's like playtime. Like the other day, I ran to the next village and I just sat on a swing eating jelly babies between runs, like because I ran there to go and do a recce, and I was like, I'm just gonna. It was just that the start of a race that I'm entering is in this park, so there just happened to be a swing there. I just sat on it, and I was just like, this is brilliant. And I've never been to that park before, so it's like, oh yeah, this is what it's about. Like just being playful and being a kid. Even if you're on your own and you think people might think you're weird, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's right though, isn't it? Because I started working with my coach probably about 18 months ago now. So ex-marine guy, and we sat down on that first day. We went through, and he was like, "Right, let's have a look at these pillars. Let's see where we are." And he's like, "Where are your business?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm up here. I'm an 8. And where are you? This down there." And then the very last question he asked me was, "What do you do for fun?" And I went,
But
"Fun? What's that?"
I haven't got time for that.
And everybody I spoke to, because we all meet up as a group sometimes, when he asks you that question, you're like, I don't know. I don't know whether it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, even with me, like if I'm, when I used to go running or when I used to be in the hills, always training for something, always the next thing. And one of the turning points for me, I think, about sort of getting out and enjoying the hills was our Hill and Moorland Leader course. Because when I'd gone out to the hills before then, big pack on, as fast as I can across there. And we went out and we were walking at snail's pace and we were looking round and we were picking up owl poo. And it was like, I get it now. This is what we're supposed to be doing out here. Because I mean, you were out the other day, Claire, as well. But was that a training run, or was that like let's enjoy the hill sort of run?
That was truly a enjoying getting out with two of my best mates and exploring a bit of the Brecons that I'd never actually been to, and we didn't have any time constraints. I'd done all my farm work before I left home, so yeah, it was just about joy, and I needed a break from the farm for a bit. So yeah, I appreciate, a bit like you, I've always done it with a big pack on my back, and kind of trying to get to this point as fast as I could, or be the most tactical around it, find the best route. But no, it was just about, well, we got lost a couple of times, and it was like, oh well, I did do a little bit of nav practice with Kate, because she still needs that. But other than that, no, it was just about mates having a laugh, and lots of taking the piss out of me now that I'm a superstar podcast host.
And to that other point that you said there as well, when you were in that job as well, there are so many people, and I've been there, and I've felt myself going back into it again recently, and that's one of the reasons I've sort of launched the podcast again and done a relaunch, is where you just get really comfortable, and the money's all right, and the job's all right, but it's not really exciting, but it's not bad enough for you to want to just jack it all in and sod off to Bali, but it's not good enough for you to be really, really sort of happy with it, is it?
Yeah, yeah, I think I just couldn't keep doing that. Like I couldn't just I just knew that if I went into another job it would just be the same, because I'd already been in quite a few, and I was having, not maybe to quite the same extremes, but that, yeah, it was like something deep down just wasn't sitting with me right. But there was no point that I was thinking, oh, I'll be self-employed, because that scared me to think, like to think, oh, I'll have to have a business, and I'll have to have a website, and I'll have to do, like, be independent and manage my own finances and tax and like that. That was just like, God, no, why would I want to do that? But actually, it really isn't as bad or as complicated as I'd thought it was. Especially because I haven't set up like a proper limited company or anything like that. I don't have massive expenses because I just work from home, and I don't travel much. Most people come to me because I live here in the Peak District, so people leave the city and come out to the Peak District. So my expenses are low, so there's not really that much admin involved.
Yeah, sounds amazing. To be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm saying on the last podcast, so me and Claire had a quick chat about sort of farming and what have you, and yeah, I think we've all watched Clarkson's Farm now, so we've got a bit of an idea about just how difficult that can be. So obviously, your podcast, is it two podcasts you've got now, or is it still just the one? You got the two, yeah, yeah. So the Kinder podcast. Tell us all about that because you've had some amazing guests on that. I love listening to that podcast.
Yeah, so after living in Eden, so I've been here for 7 years now, and after living here for, I think it was probably a couple of years, I was like, my curiosity about this place, this like moorland plateau landscape, and its wildlife and its history with the mass trespass and all these things, it was just making me feel like there was something really special. And it wasn't just me who was feeling that, because I was meeting other people who love Kinder Scout, and their eyes light up when I talked about it, or they tell me their stories about it. You know, everyone, most people have got a story about Kinder Scout if they've been up there, and sometimes it's terrible, terrible weather, or a mountain rescue story or whatever it is, or you know, then there's all these other stories, and people who've worked there, people who are inspired by it in terms of creativity. And I just noticed these patterns, and I was thinking, I want to know more. I want to create a space where people can talk about this in great detail. Because these were just kind of passing conversations I'd have with people on walks or in the pub or online. And I just thought that there was something special. So that's why I decided to start the podcast. And initially, I had someone who was editing and doing the podcast artwork, and Peak Park paid for that. So I applied for some funding and they supported it. And that elevated it even more because they shared it. And I was doing interviews with like the team leader from Edale Mountain Rescue, for example, and asking him why he joined Mountain Rescue and his story and how people can walk safely up there. So it's like educational, it's storytelling, it's inspirational, it's to connect with people who love it, but also to attract people who've never been up there, who maybe need a breakaway like I did, because I came to Edale when I was living in London, and I was looking for these ways to improve my navigation skills and my map reading and get out into the hills rather than up north, rather than going down south, just to push me out of my comfort zone even more. So yeah, it's just been an incredible way of connecting with people. And the thing is, I've loved the interviews and I've loved asking the questions and sharing them. But what I love most is the sense of community that's grown out of it, because I've made friends by interviewing these people, because they're very intimate conversations about it's very emotional conversations, you know, a lot of them. So people are sharing their, yeah, some of the deepest parts of themselves with me. And I really appreciate that. And that's formed into friendships, and then the community of people who love the show and listen to it, and then, you know, write to me, and then they've become friends, and then sometimes they've come on the show. So that, like, talking about that now, that's, even though I didn't know exactly how it would look at the time, that's the kind of thing that I was dreaming about when I was looking out the window in my office in London. You go, there must be like more to life than this. Like, just talking about stupid stuff at the coffee machine, like this kind of day to day. I don't know. It just felt. It's not like I want excitement all the time, but it was just, I just didn't feel alive when I was in that job. Um, Whereas now I really do. And I'm still working on that podcast and another podcast as well, which is about career change interviews. And there's just so much that comes out of those that gives me everything that I could have hoped for and more when I was thinking about a career change.
And also a published author.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that happened. So that's yeah, because that's the thing, is that, and you know, people listening might not believe this, because I wouldn't have believed it when people talk, if people had said this to me when I was kind of at wit's end going, what am I going to do with my life? But yeah, I really think like obviously when people are thinking about a change in life, they tend to, if it's a job change, for example, they tend to focus on your CV and applying for jobs. And yeah, that's part of it. But actually, what I've found is that the greatest opportunities that have come to me have come through connecting with people. And that's how the book opportunity came to me. I went and had, I just went for a walk with a mutual friend of the publishers, and we happened to meet on that walk. And he'd already had the idea of like writing this guidebook for Kinder Scout, and he was thinking of doing it. And but he's the managing director, so he's kind of busy. And then we met, and I talked to him about Kinder and where I live, and he realised that then I'm a Hill and Moorland leader by that point. He saw my photography on Twitter at the time, and yeah, he just randomly asked me one day. Well, it felt like it was random because it just came out of the blue. Obviously, he'd considered it, but it's just one day I got this message on Twitter saying, "I've got this idea. Do you want to be involved?" And at first, I couldn't believe it. But then yeah, I took it, and again, it was like the process of writing it that I enjoyed so much. It's great to think that people are out there, using that book, and that it's in the local shop and cafe in Edale and things like that. But it was actually what I learned about myself in the process of writing the book, and then sharing it with people and talking about it, and how it deepened my understanding of Kinder Scout even more, because I was looking at it in a different way, because I was trying to explain to people the directions of how to get around, and pausing to think, how do I describe this, and what's the best time of year for people to come and do this walk, and all those kinds of things. So again, it was all to do with like deepening connection, which I think is what was missing, when I was living in London, and even prior to that when I was at university. It was like there were parts of me that just didn't feel connected, but it was like I felt numb. And being outside, meeting new people, having new experiences, that has helped me to connect with myself and others. And then that's brought opportunities along the way that I wasn't planning. I wasn't planning to write a book, but I'm so glad that I have.
Yeah. The Long Haul podcast is brought to you with Pilgrim Journey. It's not just gear, it's the force that fuels your drive and the spark that ignites your will. So if you've got some great gear and backpacks, head over to pilgrim-journey.com. Yeah, it's a great book. It's in my bookcase behind me here. So obviously, obviously we need to sort of get together and meet up again. Because I think, was it last year or the year before that we managed to all get to? Well, it was me, you, and Ash, wasn't it? Sort of got
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago now.
That's been a while back, yeah. But what's your favourite part of Kinder anyway?
I think it's kind of stereotypical to say, like if people know Kinder Scout, they'll know the wool packs, and it's relatively easy to get to, a bit of a steep climb up, but it's on the southern edge of Kinder Scout. And for people who don't know it, it's like a massive cluster of giant gritstone boulders that are all different shapes, weathered by the weather, and they are just incredible. And in all different weathers, you have a different experience when you're there. If you see them if you go through there in the fog, it's really confusing, especially if you start looking at rocks and then you get confused about which direction you're facing. That's when the navigation comes in very handy. There's been a few times I had to get my compass out, even though I know the area pretty well, after I've done a few spins around up there. And then you can go through there. I think also in the mist, actually, sometimes they look even bigger. The boulders look even bigger, and you think, "Oh my God, how are they so huge today?" And then I've been through there in the snow when the rocks are actually have this black, well, it looks black because of the gritstone, but this, yeah, like really thick ice, a coating of ice over there. And then you've got obviously the white snow just dusted over the landscape, which is incredible. And then the cloughs, like the water in the cloughs, become more icy. And yeah, I think there's something really, it can be really still there. It can be really, I mean, you look at the rocks and see how they've been sculpted by the wind, like all the sand and grit, like getting blasted up and eroding the rocks. So it can be a really windy, like crazy place, and you just, yeah, you kind of want to get out of there. But then there can also be this stillness among the boulders, and you can stand there at sunset, and it's the most it just feels like the most beautiful place on the planet. So, and I think it's really special. I've been to a few mountainous areas in England, and yeah, that to me is really unique, and it's just so accessible. You can get up there if you're quickish from Edale up to the Woolpacks in an hour. And I've seen a mountain hare there. I did one of my podcast interviews there with a poet, and one of them was about a mountain hare, well, about mountain hares. And then just as we were sat there, mountain hare just literally came
Wow.
along, ate some grass, and we recorded it of us going, "Oh my God!" She hadn't actually seen. I don't think she'd actually seen one on Kinder before. I think she's seen maybe on Bleaklow or something, but it's like the little experiences that you have with wildlife that you maybe wouldn't expect. So I think some people think of Kinder as a bit barren, especially before a lot of the plant life was restored by Morse of the Future. So it does have a bit of a reputation for this kind of bleak black landscape. It's not like that anymore. It's flourishing with wildlife and greenness and plants and occasionally mountain hares. Apparently there's bats up there that have been tracked. It's all been on Spring Watch last week, I think. So yeah, there's a lot going on up there, but I think, yeah, that cluster of rocks is particularly special.
You kind of answered my question, because I was going to ask you what made you choose Edale to move to, because obviously you said that you've been to a number of places, but yeah, what made you actually truly decide on Edale to settle down again?
It was partly a feeling that I had when I was here. So I visited here and I loved Kinder Scout, but then it was walking through the village, I really felt something. And when I revisited, because I thought about bringing groups here from London as well, I started up my own meetup group, and so I was sort of wrecking routes and things, and I was coming up on the train because I don't drive, and so I sometimes had time around the village to sort of kill before I got my train back to London. And I stayed in the youth hostel. And I just found that the people here were really friendly, and I could tell that they like who were locals. You know, like you can like a farmer on his quad bike, or an elderly man with his walking stick who hasn't got a rucksack on him. You know, you can tell he's local pretty much. And it was that kind of environment, and how I felt like I was welcome. You know, you imagine life in London when, understandably, no one's like really talking to you unless they're really lost or something. Whereas here, it was like people were saying to me, not literally, but people were saying to me, you know, you're welcome here. You know, they were curious about me, like, you know, what are you doing here? What brings you here? And yeah, I think it was that feeling. And then after that, it was an opportunity, because I spent some winter time here, because I was getting into fell running, and so I spent a couple of weeks in winter here, and then I ended up meeting my now ex-boyfriend, who was already living in Edale. He'd grown up here, so I ended up moving in with him, and so that was like an opportunity to come and live here. And yeah, we had a good 5 years together, and we're still friends now. So yeah, it was partly an opportunity, as well.
I mean, Edale is a special place, isn't it? Because I think people have probably seen me on Instagram the past 3 times on the spine race. I try and talk about the spine race in Edale before I start the spine race, and suddenly I'm in flood of tears because I'm like,
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know what it is. It's the spine race and Edale itself. And I think when I do go to Edale, and you get out the car and you just head up through the village, and you can see the hills above you as you go out there. It is a really a special place, and even down to the Penny Pot Cafe. Absolutely, absolutely love that place. So,
yeah, me too.
yeah,
Yeah, and that was, that's where I pretty much lived while I was writing my book, because I was trying to do my other freelance work while I was in my house, and then I sort of needed to separate that from the writing. So then I'd go and sit in the Penny Pot and write in there. But I'm the same. I'm the same, Steve. Like, even just when I look out the window now, I can see Kinder Scout, or a part of Kinder Scout, from a window, from the kitchen window. I just look up there, and it's like it's just like this wave of emotion that comes over me. Or even when I've been to like the Lake District or somewhere and I come home to Edale, you're driving down Mam Nick and you just see this, yeah, this amazing landscape. And even though I've been to like some amazing mountains, it's like that feeling of home, even though I didn't grow up here or haven't got any like particular, well, I didn't have any connections here. But it was just a feeling that I followed, and I'm so glad that I did.
This is where I admit I've never been.
Oh, right.
Wow.
Yeah, never been to the Peak District. So
wow.
Yeah, when you say you've got to meet up, I'm like, I'm there. I need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You'll have to,
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you think living in Edale and sort of moving to the Peak District has made you, it was something you said before about sort of the process of things and enjoying the process, and this is something I'm sort of really going through at the minute, is learning to enjoy the process of things. Like I said, that the Hill and Moorland Leader was like sort of getting out and enjoying that, and even down to what I'm learning in life, in that, a couple of years ago, I worked in logistics. I was like, right, I'm going to do this big logistics qualification. And I got like 3 months into it and I thought, I actually don't care about this. And so I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it to get the certificate at the end. And I just jacked it in because I thought, I'm not enjoying this. But following on from an interview we did last week with another guy who's a little bit older than me, it's going out this Saturday. I thought, I need to do something I really enjoy. And say this week signed up for a BSc in sports, fitness and coaching, because I thought, I don't care about the end result there. I'm going to enjoy the learning part of it.
Yeah.
But do you think moving somewhere more with a slower pace has helped you sort of enjoy process of things rather than just the end result?
Yes, definitely. And I think probably a lot of people think that I really romanticize the place. But it's just incredible. Like, it makes me stop and be so curious about little things. Like the other day, I was just in the neighbouring village and I was going along a new trail that I'd never been along before. I was just jogging along and then a butterfly caught my attention and I went over to it and I was taking a video of it and a couple of pictures. And I thought, oh, I'll look that up later, because I tend to look up, with these like easy Google Lens or apps and whatever, you can find out really easily what things are. And while I was having a coffee later on at Cafe Adventure, I looked up the butterfly and it turned out to be the rarest, most endangered butterfly in Britain. And I don't think they've even been tracked in this area before. Like there's a few that are sort of protected down in Devon and over in Morecambe Bay and places like that. There's no mention of the Peak District. And that isn't rare. Like, these things happen all the time. And it feels like they happen when I'm curious and when I slow down and when I've got the time, the space to go and look. But obviously it's not that they're happening then, it's that my awareness is different. Definitely the environment has helped me and guided me. It's taught me a lot about myself. It's made me care about the environment more as well. I feel, again, it's that feeling of like connection to it and wanting to protect it. But I think also I find it like a guiding force as well. Like, I'll notice things in nature that inspire me or they help me make a decision. And I can't exactly explain how it works because it's kind of out of my control. And I can't force it. It's not like I think, I'll go for a run and then that will resolve this. It's more like it happens when I let go of like needing a result or wanting to get to a particular destination. It's like, I just go out and I'm open to what happens. And then I deal with that. Sometimes you might get really bad weather or something. You just, and all of these things I think teach you so much about yourself and your comfort zone and all those things. So and that's why I take other people out there. And it's funny because sometimes I feel really protective of people. I don't want people to get rained on, or I don't want them to be in the wind. I'm like, oh no, it's too windy. And then I remember I was coaching a woman one day, and we went up onto the top of Grindstone Knoll, and I looked back and I was thinking, oh my God, I hope she's okay. And I looked back and she just was, absolutely glowing. It was so windy. It was like almost knocking us over type of wind. And she was just so happy and feeling this exhilaration. She started the day crying, feeling really heavy and emotional and like letting all the stuff out. And then she was, on Grindstone Knoll feeling like she was on top of the world. And you just got to sort of allow people to have the experience they're having. And so I have to let go of control of it sometimes as well, whether it's of myself or for someone else.
Who are your main clients then? Who comes to you for career coaching? What's gone on in their lives that's made them think, I need a coach?
Yeah, it's a real mix. Sometimes it is people who have been like in a corporate type environment, and they're looking for either like more free time, or maybe doing something that they just enjoy more. In fact, they probably end up working even more because they love it so much and they put so much into it. They're putting more time in, but it's not, it's different, isn't it? Because the time's like kind of it's more your own and you're being creative. But there's also people who are maybe students later in life who are thinking about what to do next. Some people who have set up their own business and then they want to maybe sell it or just move on from it and maybe get something a bit more stable because they're having children or because they want a more stable income. So it's not always the story of leave the corporate life and go and be self-employed. Sometimes it's actually the other way. It depends what the circumstances are. And I don't go out there trying to make everyone leave their job and start up their own thing, because it isn't for everybody. And I suppose I've made some choices. For example, I don't own or drive a car, and I don't own property or anything like that. I don't have a mortgage. So, and some people might think that's crazy, to be like 40 years old and not have your own property and not have the freedom to have a car and go. But I've chosen this life. I don't expect other people to do the same. I just support people in exploring what it is that they want and how that will work for them, and then taking the steps to try it out. Basically, I always say to people, how are you going to find out if this is actually what you want? Because I think sometimes people want like a final answer. It's like they either want to do this or they want to do this, and they put themselves like in boxes. Whereas I think career coaching works really well for people who have the time and space to explore a bit and to try things out before necessarily committing to something as a kind of final a final life choice.
Like you say in your kind of info about you, coaching is about asking questions rather than giving advice, and that is exactly what you described there, is just kind of giving that person the space to actually think, what if this, but actually what if that as well. It's not a definitive, that is the way I need to go.
Yeah, I think
Sorry about
it's
my
a really
dogs.
I think it's a really special thing, because obviously when you talk to about things to friends and family, they tend to give their opinion, or they'll tell you what to do, or that give you advice. And obviously that is just how people communicate and socialize. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's what I think is so special about coaching. And obviously some people might associate coaching with being told what to do, because that's maybe what happens in sports coaching or things like that. So I think with this style of coaching, it is very different. And it might actually make some people feel really uncomfortable, because they are essentially in the spotlight to talk, sometimes for an hour or 4 hours. And obviously I prompt with questions from what they're saying, but it's quite a vulnerable space to be in. It takes courage to share your inner world with someone, and without being interrupted, because people are so used to being interrupted. People are so used to other people chipping in and giving their opinion, or disagreeing or sneering or whatever it is. And to have someone who allows that space for them to open up, and then to to actually, because basically what I'm saying to people is, tell me more about that. Tell me more. I'm not shutting them down or talking about myself. So yeah, it's a really beautiful thing, and I feel really grateful to have that role as a facilitator, basically.
Yeah, because I think we're all very we're all very used to just giving those surface level answers, aren't we? And those surface level answers are very very rarely the issue or the problem. It's something sort of 3 levels deeper than that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of energy for both parties, you know. So as the coach, I'm really intently listening and kind of like noting things that that person is saying to then open up more questions about those things that I'm picking up. But then for the person as well, you know, most people aren't used to opening up that much, talking that much. And then because I do them outside generally as well, you've got, you know, like the elements to deal with, the view, the energy of walking, like it's so I always say to people, you know, try and dedicate a day to it, you know, even if you're traveling home and go and have a bath afterwards or whatever it is, just some downtime, because it is yeah, it's quite a powerful experience to go through.
How would somebody go about choosing a coach then? Because obviously you're a very different type of coach to the guy I see. If I think of like last weekend, we were away and there was a group of us, and one of the questions was like, what's your mission? And this guy was like, well, I just want to be happy, and it was like, what fucking hell does that mean? Well, you know what I mean? Tell me what the mission is, and he sort of really went to town, and it was quite hard to try and get that information out of him. But that's going to work with guys like me and sort of ex-military, but it's not going to work with other people from the sort of softer industries as well. So if somebody's looking for a coach, how should they? Where should they go first of all to find one? And how do they go about choosing that coach?
So yeah, it's a good question actually, because I remember when I found mine, it was a kind of I didn't even know that coaching really existed, and I just went to this talk, and I was just so kind of dazzled by her and her message and what she was saying about her life. You know, it was just like sold. Here's £1,500. You know, and I wasn't a big spender, but it was just like, whoa, I just felt this. So I think the best way of knowing that it's right is by having an actual interaction with them first and going on the feeling, because going on the feeling of does this person inspire me? Does this person make me feel like I want to open up to them and ask? I mean, at the time, I really wanted to ask her loads of questions, which obviously wasn't her role to answer my questions. But I felt just like I wanted to ask her everything, like how did she get to where she was and blah, 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 blah. But obviously, when we actually had the sessions, it was her asking me questions, but it was like that spark. It was so if I think the coach that you see that you're going to work with has to be a sort of role model for you, I think. I'm not saying to like reflect exactly what you want, or it wasn't like I was thinking about being a coach then, not at all. Yeah, I wasn't thinking, oh, she's a coach, I'll be a coach. It took ages for her to suggest it to me. I wasn't even open to the idea until she eventually suggested it to me. So I think I think obviously there's like the first eye-catching bit, but then actually making sure that you have that rapport. I went and chatted to her afterwards, and then we had like an introductory call, because she went back over to Malawi, and we had a chat, and I just felt so excited and so, like it was like I'd been feeling so numb and so scared of what life was going to look like. But then with her, I felt like I was brave enough. I felt like I found the courage to open up and to explore it. And I felt this deep trust even before the session started. I just felt like I really trusted her, even though I was sending her. I took a loan out to pay for it because I felt so, and that was the first time I'd ever taken a loan out. These were really new things to me, and I was already in debt. I was living in London and hadn't long been a student, so it's like my parents were kind of going, this is a terrible idea. And I was just going, screw it, I'm just going to do it, because I felt so I just felt like it was the right thing. I think it's got to be like this inner feeling. I think, God, finding a coach these days must be really hard because there's so many people who are out there sort of selling themselves as coaches. But I'd say if you can, if they do talks or if they have a podcast and things like that, go to those places first and get a feel for them. See if you like them. Like, you're going to be opening up and telling them some of the stuff you probably won't even talk to your partner about. It's not therapy, but you might actually go and tell them stuff that you're too scared to say to your partner because it might mean so many changes are going to happen in your life. So you've got to trust them implicitly, and that just takes a bit of time. So you've got to spend a bit of time with them, I think.
Do you think everyone should have a coach?
Ooh, good question. Actually, no, because I think it's only going to work if you are actually willing to really partake in it. You've got to really, really, really want change for it to have any impact at all, because otherwise it's just a nice chat. And yeah, because the thing is, I really, really, really wanted out. I was, at the time I felt desperate. I was just like, I've had enough and I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. So yeah, I think I think you've actually really, to get the time and financial investment out of it, the true value of it, you've got to be willing to really put the work in. Yeah.
You got any more questions, Claire? Because I'm aware I try and hog it, and we're just learning this podcast marriage together.
No, I don't think so. I think we've
So
I was
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, with that side of looking for a coach, I can see actually possibly just because of the slight difference in male and female mentalities, we're probably drawn to different people and different styles of coaching anyway. So that's where it's actually quite positive. As Steve was saying, his coach has a very different approach to you. And so, yeah, your advice is try and listen and find out as much about them before you sign up to someone, and possibly be a little bit self-aware on how you learn yourself to know what you want from your coach. So yeah.
Yeah, really I think also with what Steve was saying, I think it does depend on the sort of approach. I didn't really think about the approach when I went to receive coaching. I wasn't looking for a coach. I just happened to find one. But if you are actually thinking about it, then some people might really need to be pushed. Like, they might actually need that. Like, what does being happy mean? Like, yeah, I mean, I don't think that would suit me at all. It sort of makes me laugh a bit because I'm just, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying in a mocking way, but it makes me laugh because maybe it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. For someone to kind of say, well, what does that mean? Whereas I think that, yeah, it's not like I don't feel like it's an airy fairy sort of approach. I feel like I still challenge people, but it's in a different way. Maybe I do it in a way that I sort of need, like a sort of more nurturing, I suppose, like just like a little gentle question, like, if you say to someone, what, if you weren't doing this job, what do you want for yourself instead? And people might just go, I don't know, I don't know, that's why I'm here. And then I might just go, well, what if you did know? And then it's just like oh. So it's just like it's like a little hint at a deeper level. And then there might be like a bit of a silence. And then they might just go, and rather than going, oh, I want to do this job, because that isn't what I'm after. What I'm after is them saying, well, I just want a bit more time for myself, or I want more time with my kids. And then it's like, right. And then you start unpicking all of that. So yeah, I think that it's just different approaches and they suit different people.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you need different things at different times of life, don't you? Because when I first started working, say with my guy, we were working together for probably about a year, and went through a few things and what have you. And after working for a year, I said, "Look, I need a bit of a break here because I need to go and speak to somebody else." And I spoke to this amazing therapist for like a year. Really sort of soft guy. He wasn't, not ex-Marines, not a commando. And that year, was really, really productive for me. And then I was like, right, okay, so this season's now finished, and now I need to go back to that. And who knows, in 12 months' time, I might go, right, I need a break, and I need to go back. So I think it's really being aware that, if you do have a coach or you have a therapist or a mentor, that it might not be forever. You might need something else at a different point in your life, and to go away and look at that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I've so I haven't been coached for a while now because I had my sort of coaching training and there was coaching within that. But then yeah, then I've gone into therapy and I found that completely different and really helpful for other reasons. And yeah, it's all of it has just been incredible and has helped me in so many different ways.
Brilliant. Sarah, it's been great speaking to you. We could probably go on for another hour or so. But yeah, look, great. I think, next we definitely need to meet up soon, and I'll try and get Claire to come up as well, and we can introduce you to the Peak District
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, because Kinder's a really special place, really, really special place. I don't think there's anywhere quite like it in the British Isles or anywhere really. But yeah, thanks very much, Sarah. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll put in the show notes where people can sort of get in touch with you as well. And yeah, your podcasts are Wild About Kinder, and the other podcast is
About the Adventure.
About the Adventure. Brilliant, that's it. Yeah, great. I mean, find you on Instagram and all these usual places. I'll stick it in the show notes. Thanks very much, Sarah. Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye.
May the truth be told, I was down bad, now I got it on go. Finna count my dough till my thumb got slit. Put my neck on glitz, put my name on the list. Finna shine on the flippin' drum. From the bay, been player one, way too clean. I was born this way, this my DNA. I was EBT, now the bread on the way was to eat.